think the first and most important thing, and it's not just a plug for me, you need to have an experienced team to help guide you through this. Um, I've done it hundreds of times. Most of you only do it once. I think that kind of speaks for itself. Managing the buyer is a very important part of getting a good deal. It involves preparation, anticipation. If you can do that, then you start controlling the negotiations, and you don't give the buyer the upper hand. And of course, managing your investors. Understand what they want, understand how you're going to get what you need from them in order to get a successful exit. So I think that is it. Questions and answers. Kim, over to you.
Simon, that was outstanding. Thank you very much for providing us a very clear and methodical roadmap when considering and actually planning for our company exit. We've got a number of questions that are in. Unfortunately, we're only going to be able to take two of them. The first question is, are there any telltale signs that a prospective buyer isn't serious? Or said another way, is what can a company do to flush out or screen non-serious buyers?
I think a couple of things. One is delay. Anybody who delays, prevaricates, doesn't get back to you is not serious. They are time wasters. And the second, I think, answer to that is the buyer spending any money? Does he have his deal team fired up, working with your deal team? Is the buyer spending his money or her money at the same time and at the same rate you are? If everybody's spending lots of dollars on professionals, then you can assume that we're all going forward with this unless something bad happens. So those would be my two telltale giveaways.
Okay, and the last question for the webinar today. What are the typical mistakes, if there are such a thing, a seller experiences that may lead to a reduced sales price?
The number one answer to that is failure to properly understand the financial condition of the company. Either you have not reported your financial performance correctly, or you have overstated your expectations. Here, I can give you a funny example of a transaction I did down in Alabama. Everybody knows there is US GAAP for accounting purposes. So now I understand that there's Alabama GAAP. We were working on buying this business, and I had the diligence materials, and I was looking in the balance sheet, and there was no term loan, but yet the diligence materials included a bunch of banking documents. So I called up the attorney on the other side. I said, "So I don't see the term loan in the balance sheet. I guess you've paid it off because you sent me the papers." And he said, "No, we still owe the money." And he said, "Well," I said, "Why is it not on the balance sheet?" Well, he says, "It's one of those term loans. We don't owe it yet." So that meant the company had $1 million of extra liabilities that were not reflected on its balance sheet. So that is an example of just unsophisticated financial reporting, and it is the number one reason why things fall apart.
Excellent. Well, I guess they say, the devil is in the details. So thank you again, Simon, very much for your expertise and for sharing with us how we can get the most out of planning and the most out of our hard work when we go to sell our company. I always like to finish with a few of my own personal takeaways from each presenter, and here they are. Number one, really identify your exit or exits before you raise capital. Most investors, first two questions out of their mouth are going to be, how much do I need to invest? What's the minimum investment? And secondly, when am I going to get out? So identifying your exit, or hopefully multiple exits, is a great way to begin before you go and raise capital. And speaking of multiple exit strategies, the ability to actually walk away, or having that walk away leverage, that is really an important aspect of your strategies. For those of you who were at last month's webinar, our presenter Michael Graumick of Kritsu Forum indicated to make sure that one of your identified exits is not an IPO. I think that we didn't spend a lot on IPO today for a variety of reasons. Finally, develop a strong investor communication program. I think there are a number of reasons why this is a really critical point. For better or for worse, to the extent that you have good communication strategies, helps to keep everybody on board and hopefully avoid any unintended surprises. I'd like to thank Simon again for sharing with us the framework and the importance of developing a thoughtful and systematic exit plan. Like I said before, at the end of the day, what we want as entrepreneurs is to be able to harvest our investment, our hard work, and it largely is predicated on getting across the end zone without fumbling the ball. So we will certainly take all of Simon's thoughts into consideration. And speaking of Simon, he will be offering a complimentary consultation for you to ask specific questions about your unique circumstances. And for those of you we were unable to get to your questions today, please just get a hold of Simon and mention this webinar when you contact him. He will be delighted to continue to impart his wisdom. We will be sending you the post-webinar link of today's session so you may review it at your leisure, as well as a brief survey. We appreciate your efforts in getting this back to us. We certainly would love to hear from you about what other topics you would like us to bring. And thank you very much for spending some time with us this morning. We hope we have made it worth your while. See you next time.
.com to sign up for any of these events. We thank you all for joining us today. Again, we hope you found it valuable, and we welcome you to the Breakaway Funding community.